Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today, we're going to do something a little different. Usually we take a specific philosopher, Plato, Kant, Nietzsche, and we wade into their specific ideas. But today, we're taking a step back. We are looking at the machine itself. We're holding in our hands, metaphorically of course, a definitive guide on the study of metaphysics itself. But this isn't just a treatise about the world, it's a treatise on how to think about the world.
It's an operating manual. I think that's really the best way to describe it. We're looking at a text that demands we stop treating philosophy like, a collection of inspirational quotes for Instagram, and start treating it like the complex architectural discipline it actually is. It's a framework for the rigorous mind.
I love that phrase, the rigorous mind. It sounds like a workout routine for your brain.
Yeah.
But before we get into the gears and pulleys of this framework, we need to set the stage. We're diving into metaphysics, and I feel like that word gets thrown around a lot. Oh, that's so metaphysical, but what are we actually talking about here?
We need to ground this immediately because the text is very, very strict about definitions. Metaphysics here isn't about ghosts or magic. It is the study of the fundamental nature of reality, existence, and being. It's the structural beams that hold up the universe. We're asking the big, terrifying questions. What is there? What is it like?
So less, what is my horoscope? And more, what does it mean for a thing to actually exist?
Precisely. It's the difference between, say, interior decorating and structural engineering.
Okay, let's unpack the mission here.
Yeah.
Because the material we're looking at makes a pretty bold, almost intimidating claim right off the bat. It says the goal is to move the listener toward an understanding that is benchmark plus 3 standard deviations in intelligence. I haven't done statistics since college, but that sounds high.
It is high. If you look at a bell curve, benchmark plus 3 standard deviations puts you in like the top 0.1% of analytical capability. It's the extreme outlier.
0.1%. That feels a little elitist, doesn't it? Are we saying you have to be a genius to read this stuff?
I don't think it's about raw IQ. I really don't. It's about effort and clarity. The argument is that most people engage with ideas at the benchmark level, the average. We accept things at face value. To get to that +3 level, you have to be an engineer of ideas. You can't just be a tourist looking at the building. You have to understand the schematics.
What I find interesting is the persona this text demands. You'd expect something that aims for the top 0.1% to be, dry, academic, maybe a little stuffy. But it specifically says the tone should be conversational but sharp.
That's the key balance. Think of it like a dinner party with experienced philosophers.
Okay, paint the picture for me.
The wine is excellent, the food is expensive, the mood is polite, but the conversation is lethal. They're treating these serious topics with poise and solemnity, but they're allowed to be witty. They're allowed to acknowledge the absurdity of it all.
So it's not a lecture hall, it's a duel.
It's a duel with strict rules of etiquette. If you're too dry, you miss the human element. If you're too loose, well, you aren't doing philosophy, you're just chatting.
All right, let's walk that tightrope. Let's move into the analysis, the framework of understanding. It starts with a heavy critique of how we usually consume information. It calls out what it labels the bumper sticker version of philosophy.
And this is the first hurdle. Most of us, even the well-read ones, are walking around with slogans. I think, therefore I am. God is dead. Hell is other people. We know the slogan, but we don't know the engine that drove the car there.
I'm guilty of this. I quote, I think, therefore I am, all the time. It just means I exist because I'm thinking about it.
Right. See, that's the summary. That's the rabbit being pulled out of the hat. The rigorous mind asks, how did Descartes get there? What was the trapdoor?
Okay, walk me through the trapdoor. How does the framework tell us to analyze that?
You have to identify the premises. Descartes started by doubting everything. He doubted his senses, he doubted his memory, he even doubted math. He stripped reality down to absolute zero. The only thing he couldn't doubt was the fact that he was doing the doubting.
So the way I think isn't just a casual thought, it's the residue left over after you burn everything else down.
Exactly. And if you don't understand that process, the burning down, you don't actually understand the quote. You just memorized a soundbite. A rigorous deep dive requires looking for the logical steps. It asks, is this reasoning tight?
And to find those assumptions, you have to bring in this massive concept of context. And it's pretty aggressive about this, intellectual and historical context.
This is where most people fail. We tend to read old books like they were written yesterday, but ideas don't happen in a vacuum. Every great work of metaphysics is a rebellion against something else.
A rebellion. That makes it sound violent.
Intellectually, it usually is. You have to ask, what was the prevailing view before this was written? Who is this author screaming at?
Can you give me an example? Because historical context sounds like the boring part of history class.
Okay, think about Thomas Hobbes. He wrote Leviathan, which is this massive argument for an absolute ruler, a strong central authority. Now, if you read that today with our modern democratic sensibilities, Hobbes sounds like a monster, like a tyrant.
Right, he sounds like he hates freedom.
But apply the context. When did Hobbes write it?
I honestly have no idea. The 1600s.
The mid-1600s. During the English Civil War, he was watching his country literally tear itself apart. Neighbors killing neighbors, total chaos. He wasn't writing about tyranny because he loved power. He was writing about it because he was terrified of anarchy.
So the monster was actually a guy who just wanted the killing to stop.
And he believed the only way to stop it was a ruler scary enough to keep everyone in line. Once you see the Civil War in the background, the philosophy changes from I love dictators to I fear chaos. That is what we mean by context.
It provides the color. It turns a static argument into a desperate plea.
And we also look for historical parallels. Because the funny thing is, the problems don't change much. A problem from ancient Greece often looks suspiciously similar to a problem we're trying to solve in Silicon Valley today.
Speaking of which, let's talk about language. The section on innovation and vocabulary. Great works often sound difficult, and let's be honest, a little pretentious, because they're using words that nobody uses.
Dasein, noumena, qualia.
Bless you. But seriously, is this just gatekeeping? Is it philosophers trying to sound smart so regular people can't argue?
I'm sure that happens, but the argument is there's a legitimate reason. Key innovations often require new vocabulary because the existing language wasn't sufficient for the new idea.
Like an explorer finding a new animal. You can't just call it a weird dog. You have to give it a name.
Exactly. If you're discovering a new continent of thought, you have to name the mountains and the rivers. If Kant wants to talk about the thing in itself versus how we perceive the thing, and there's no word for that in German, he has to build the word.
So when we see a weird word, we shouldn't just roll our eyes. We should ask, what didn't exist before this word?
Right. What made a work groundbreaking at the time? Sometimes the innovation is the method itself, not just the conclusion.
But we're not just supposed to admire these innovations. We have to attack them. There's a whole section on critique and objection.
A rigorous mind is a critical mind, but it's not a cynical mind. The text warns against what we call straw manning, making the argument look weak so you can knock it down. It demands we do the opposite. We have to steel man the argument.
Steel man. So make it as strong as possible before you try to break it.
Correct. You have to present the objections as if we believed them. We have to address the strongest objections, but present the original author's defense fairly.
It's like being a lawyer for a client you know is guilty. You still have to give them the best possible defense.
Or a client you think is guilty. Because sometimes when you really try to defend the idea, you realize they might have been right. It forces you to engage with the complexity.
It's a dialogue across centuries. You have the original thinker, the critic who came 100 years later, and we're just sitting at the dinner party listening.
That is the essence of it. It's not static. It's a living, breathing brawl of ideas.
Now, I want to pivot to what I think is the most important part. Because all this intellectual sparring, it's great fun, but I have a mortgage to pay. I have to decide who to vote for. I have real problems. Why should I care about any of this?
This is the so what factor, and the text is very clear on this. Philosophy is about the world. It's about moving from the abstract to the concrete.
But how? How does the nature of being help me with my mortgage?
Think about causality, cause and effect. In metaphysics, we argue about whether A causes B or if it's just correlation. That sounds abstract. But now look at the algorithm that decides your credit score. That algorithm is a metaphysical engine. It assumes your past behavior causes your future reliability. It assumes a specific structure of reality where your data points define your being as a borrower.
So if I don't understand the underlying logic, the metaphysics of the algorithm, I'm just a victim of it.
You're a passenger. You have to connect abstract ideas to concrete situations. If we talk about ethics, we shouldn't just talk about trolleys. We should talk about self-driving cars or triaging patients in a pandemic.
And you have to use clear analogies.
Because if you can't explain it with an analogy, you probably don't understand it yourself. The rigorous mind seeks simplicity on the other side of complexity.
And part of that is tracing the lasting influence. We have to look forward from the work.
We have to identify specific philosophers, movements, or traditions that built on the original arguments. Did this text spawn a religion? Did it spark a political revolution? You have to follow the river downstream.
It's amazing how often a modern debate, something on Twitter or in a Senate hearing, is actually just a remix of a metaphysical argument from 300 years ago.
We aren't as original as we think we are. We're the inheritors of these great unresolved questions.
Speaking of unresolved questions, I think we have laid the framework pretty well. Rigorous analysis, deep context, fair critique, concrete application.
That is the recipe.
So now let's put that recipe to the test. It is time for our thought experiment segment.
I love this part. This is where we break things.
Okay, before we jump in, the disclaimer. Please note that the following thought experiments are for entertainment and educational purposes only. We are entering the realm of the hypothetical.
And the text gives us rules for this too. We must use scenario-based thinking. We have to explore extreme but logically consistent possibilities.
Logically consistent, that's the hard part.
We have to put the framework under stress to see what holds.
All right, experiment number 1. Let's call this the perfect simulation.
Set the scene.
Okay, we mentioned that this is all about IQ plus 3 standard deviations. Tight reasoning, clear premises, no bumper stickers. So imagine we build an AI that is the perfect embodiment of this. It operates only on tight reasoning. It is incapable of processing a bumper sticker slogan or a vibe.
So it's a mind of pure metaphysics, no cultural baggage.
Exactly, pure, rigorous structure.
Yeah.
Now here is the stress test. You introduce this AI to human society. Can it function?
My instinct says yes. If it's that smart, if it understands the fundamental nature of reality, it should be the ultimate problem solver.
But think about it. Human culture runs on the bumper stickers. We run on shorthand, love thy neighbor, freedom isn't free, fake it till you make it.
These are logically fuzzy concepts. If you ask this AI to analyze fake it till you make it, what happens?
It would probably crash. It would look for the logical premise and ask, how can false behavior lead to authentic achievement? The premise is contradictory.
Exactly. It would view our social glue as a series of logical errors.
So the implication is alienation, a massive divide between pure philosophical understanding and applied human understanding. If we become too rigorous, we might lose the ability to understand humanity.
It suggests that the bumper sticker serves a utility that the rigorous version cannot. It's the user interface versus the code. We can't live in the binary code. We need the pretty icons. That's a brilliant distinction. If you live in the code, you see the truth, but you can't order a coffee. The rigorous mind is about knowing how to toggle between the two.
Precisely. Now, experiment number 2. This one spins off the context requirement. Let's call it the context vacuum.
Okay, I'm ready.
So we've established the immense weight of intellectual and historical context. You can't understand Hobbes without the Civil War.
Right. It illuminates the intent.
So here's the scenario. A spaceship lands. It drops a single book, a philosophical treatise. We have no author name, no date, no idea if it was written by a slimy alien warlord or a peaceful energy being. Zero context.
The ultimate blind test.
The stress test is, can the arguments stand entirely on their own? Can the logic survive the vacuum?
Well, logic should be universal. 2 + 2 = 4, whether an alien says it or I say it. If metaphysics is the study of the fundamental nature of reality, it shouldn't matter who wrote it.
I want to believe that. But let's say the alien book argues that the collective is more important than the individual. If we know that species is a hive mind, like bees, that argument is just biology. It's a fact. But if we know that species is solitary hunters, like tigers, and they chose to value the collective, that's a profound moral philosophy.
Oh, I see where you're going. Without the context, we don't know if it's a description of biology or a prescription for morality.
Exactly. The words are the same. The collective is superior. But the meaning changes completely based on the author.
That is disturbing.
Why?
Because it challenges our whole premise. We want to believe that ideas can be analyzed rigorously on their own merits, but in this vacuum, we find that context doesn't just illuminate. It might actually constitute the meaning.
It implies that metaphysics might not be a science like math. It might be high-level storytelling.
And if the meaning depends on the biography of the author, then we aren't studying the fundamental nature of reality. We're studying the history of thought.
It's the difference between finding a gun in a museum and finding a gun at a crime scene. The object is identical. The meaning is entirely different.
That is a haunting thought. that our rigorous understanding of reality might depend entirely on the story we tell about why we're asking the questions. It suggests the rigorous mind isn't just a calculator, it needs to be a detective.
A detective, a historian, and a poet all rolled into one. You can't just run the logic, you have to feel the room.
And that brings us right back to the dinner party. You have to know the history of the guests to understand the arguments at the table.
This brings us to the end of our deep dive. We've deconstructed the framework, the importance of arguments over summaries, the vital role of context, fair critique, and connecting it all to the real world.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises one final provocative question for everyone listening. We spend so much time debating modern issues, AI ethics, political polarization, the meaning of work. But are these modern debates actually new?
Or are we just remixing the greatest hits?
Are we essentially still arguing about the same questions raised by these classic frameworks, just with better technology and faster internet? The fundamental nature of reality hasn't changed, only our view of it has.
That is something to mull over. When you get into an argument on social media later today, stop and ask yourself, am I having a new thought? Or am I just quoting a footnote from 1781?
Chances are it's the footnote.
I want to thank you for joining us on this exploration of the rigorous mind. It's heavy lifting, but it's the only way to build real intellectual muscle.
Keep questioning the bumper stickers.
Exactly. Seek those aha moments in your own reading. Don't settle for the summary, go for the source. This has been Talk Treatises. We'll see you in the next deep dive.